All right, great. All right, so one of the things that we're talking about now, we've sort of transitioned into talking about COVID-19 and what it is, and how to protect yourself. And now we're in a conversation around how to actually lower your risk during the reopening. As I've actually shared with people, this is actually the most important time to be on this call. Because when we were at home and we were talking about what the disease is and what's going on, we were all at home. We are now actually being more exposed, and we actually now need to actually really look at what we're doing and what other people are doing, right? I actually put the website here, as well as the Twitter handle. AskDrV.us is the website, and that actually has most of the information and the articles on it. The articles that I'm going to show you at the very end, which are not a part of the presentation, have not been uploaded then. Not been uploaded yet. We just have had a lot of things going on. So the structure is we're going to do 10 to 15 minutes of a presentation, and then after that we're going to do Q&A. We're always done by 9 o'clock. If you want to ask a question, the best thing to do is put something in the chat box. So as you're actually hearing the presentation, please feel free to actually put something in the chat box. During the presentation, everyone will be in listen mode. So the intention is to keep participants informed about COVID-19 science that will help them and their families stay healthy during the pandemic. And the outcome is that you will leave the webinar motivated to create an action plan. At this point, we're actually, almost everybody has had an action plan, and we're actually revising it a little bit, okay? So that's very, very important. So, to wear a mask or not to wear a mask, a lot of people ask about masks. So I actually want to deal with what happens if somebody that I'm actually talking to doesn't wear a mask, or someone, my neighbor comes over and they don't want to wear a mask, but I'm wearing a mask, etc. Okay? So when you wear a mask, you are protecting the other person. When they wear a mask, they are protecting you. So that's the most important thing, just as a basis, right? This slide here looks at what is the transmission possibility, right? So about 40% of the transmissions come from people with no symptoms, right? So we're assuming over here on the left that the kind of caramel skinned woman is actually a COVID-19. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry, I hit the screen. Hold on. Okay. We're assuming that the caramel skinned person on the left is COVID-19 positive. The person on the right, who's kind of more ivory skin, is healthy and is not COVID positive, right? So if the person who's COVID, now in real life, you don't know who's who, because most people have never been tested. They haven't been tested that particular day, right? So if the COVID positive person does not have on a mask and you have on a mask, the percent transmission is 70%. If the COVID positive person has on a mask and you're healthy, that would mean like you had a COVID test today, and you're without a mask, then the percent transmission probability is 5%. If both of you have a mask on and one person is positive, the percent transmission probability is 1.5%. Okay, so that is what it looks like if you have a mask or somebody else does not have on a mask. Now, what's important about this is I tell people, some people are like, well, they temperature tested and they asked a bunch of questions. 40% of the COVID transmissions occur from asymptomatic people who would answer all of those questions negatively. Now, we're going to do coughing and sneezing video simulations. This is a YouTube video, and what it does is it actually simulates an office space. And it actually goes over what actually happens with person to person in an air-conditioned office space. This is actually really important because this actually shows from above, from a from above, like where does it go? Where does it land, right? This is why clothes and computers and shoes are so important. Now this shows what happens if he actually sneezes into or coughs into his elbow, which is important, but still things go quite far. All right, so now we're going to actually show a different simulation, which is actually someone coughing in a corridor bound by shelves. And this has a minute timer at the top. So it's very important to look at the very top of the page. What happens? 1 minute, 2 minute, 3 minute, 4 minute, 5 minutes, and 6 minutes. This is why it's very important when you're out, 5 or 6 minutes, you don't actually really know who's been there before, right? So let's talk about effective mask, right? If you're going to use fabric, actually the CDC, and we have to change this, is actually recommending 3 layers of tightly woven cotton. You can add a filter. You want a very snug fit. The areas that do not normally have a snug fit are around the nose and sort of around the chin, right in front of the ear, right? You don't want to actually touch the outside of the mask and the front of it. You want to actually take the mask on and off over by the ear, right? You want to actually be able to wash it after each use if possible. Oh, sorry about that. Now, I've been asked a lot of questions about flying. So when you fly and you go up in the air, you have a system which internally circulates the air. This particular video determines that there might be somebody in the plane that's COVID positive, what would actually happen. Sorry, we have to actually wait for the YouTube ad to go. Okay, all right, so now all of the procedures on the airlines, because we don't have any standard procedures by the CDC or by the federal government, every airline is doing something different, right? Some of the airlines are requiring masks to get on the plane, some of them are requiring to stay on the plane. So this is a particular simulation, and the person in blue actually is COVID positive. And then it lights up in purple for the people. He coughs once on a flight, and it lights up who are the people that actually become COVID positive as a result in the plane. And as you'll see, one person actually makes about 10 people become COVID positive in this plane. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 10. Yeah. So that is a simulation about on a plane. All right, so now before we get into Q&A, I want to actually go to the things that I actually, hold on just a second. Yeah, okay. All right, I want to go into 2 things, and I don't have these on slides yet, so I just have these on my email. So I apologize for the roughness of it, but that's where we are right now. All right, here we go. So there were 2 very interesting reports. Okay, so, all right. So initially, there was a conversation about people being asymptomatic. And, oh, you can't really pass COVID from somebody who's asymptomatic. So this particular physician was misquoted. So when we are talking to people, when we're talking to each other in the medical profession, we make a distinction between asymptomatic and presymptomatic. So asymptomatic is I don't have symptoms right now and I never develop symptoms. Pre-symptomatic is, I don't have symptoms right now, but I do develop symptoms in 14 days. So at the beginning of both of those conversations is, I don't have symptoms right now. So from a functional standpoint, you cannot make a distinction today between an asymptomatic and a pre-symptomatic person. What she was saying was, an asymptomatic person who never develops symptoms is not very likely to give somebody COVID. But an asymptomatic person who does deliver symptoms later actually is responsible for 40% of the COVID cases. So it's been kind of twisted and misconstrued, which is what is the importance of these calls. And I'm going to actually do a couple of slides around this because people are thinking I can just temperature test somebody, ask a couple questions, and then I know they're okay. So I don't want people to actually think that, because that's actually not true. So, and when we talk about symptoms, if you remember back to when we were talking before, symptoms could be as mild as a headache, loss of taste, loss of smell. Symptoms are not fever, coughing, somebody who looks sick. So somebody could be very well appearing to us and actually still be COVID positive. And a lot of people don't know loss of taste, loss of smell, and a headache are symptoms, right? So then the other thing that I wanted to actually talk about was talking about the people that are resisting actually using masks. And this I thought was actually, this is out of the UK, this I thought was actually really one of the most interesting studies. So people who are likely to ignore lockdown restrictions are people with psychopathic traits. Now, psychopathic traits is not a medical term, right? The term that they're actually referring to is what we refer to as, hold on just a second, let me find it. It's what we refer to as a dark triad, right? And I want to actually pull this up so people can actually see it. So the dark triad is a triad of 3 personality type disorders, right? One is narcissistic, one is Machiavellian, and Machiavellian is more sort of like very callous, totally interested in self, and I just have to get to the end result no matter what. Psychopathy is actually not a medical diagnosis, but it actually talks about people who are like risk-seeking, impulsive, selfish, callous, and they just want whatever they want, or they're trying to get into some sort of risk-seeking behavior. So this is kind of like a triad, right? So this triad of personality types is actually the type of personality that will actually totally and completely resist using a mask, right? And so some people have asked me, well, my neighbors, they've said they're not going to use a mask, and this person, they've said they're not going to use a mask. Now, some people are like, well, you know, I don't really feel like it right now or whatever. But those folks who are like, I'm not using a mask no matter what, you can't make me, right? So this particular study actually looked at what is the percentage of people, and this will be on my website tomorrow. Trust me, I will have this up there tomorrow. And so it looked at what is the percentage of people that actually are absolutely refusing to use a mask, and where do they lie personality-wise in the dark triad. And I thought this was actually really, really interesting, because I have some people who are saying, like, I didn't know my neighbor was like this. What do I do? That sort of thing, right? So I will get this up on the website. I will actually read these studies. This just came out. I think this came out, yeah, June 9th. So this was today, right? So some of this stuff just came out. I find this actually fascinating, that you can actually link personality types to who's not using masks. I will actually dissect this a little bit more by Thursday and actually have the numbers and data and everything that we need to back it up. So anyhow, I just wanted to go over that. I don't have them as nice slides like we normally do, but that's where we are. Okay, I'll just let me keep on going with the questions. So should I allow a house cleaner to come back in my home? Excellent question. Oh my gosh, excellent question. Okay, so I am absolutely querying and questioning my house cleaner. I have asked her whether or not she has, and so I am actually allowing my housekeeper to come back into my home next week. Not because I want to, because I can't even stand myself anymore without a house cleaner. So I have decided, so one of the things that we talked about last week was that, I'm not going to go out to dinner if the things that bother me, I have to choose what are the things that bother me the most. Okay, so the things that bother me the most are not having my house clean and not having my hair done. So I'm going to let everything else go. I'm not going out to restaurants. I'm not going to go get my nails done. I'm not going to get my eyebrows done. All these other things, I'm not going to the dentist, right? I decided to narrow it down to two things that bother me the most. So what bothers me the most is my hair not being done and my house not being clean. I attempted to clean it myself. I didn't do anywhere near a good enough job, right? So I called my house cleaner who's like OCD and very, very meticulous. And so I asked her if she had an N95 mask. She does. I also have an N100 mask, which I considered actually letting her use. And so with the N95 mask and the gloves, she is going to come into my house. And so thank you, Holly. So those are the conditions. So let me just talk for just a second about the conditions under which I did certain things, right? So my hair I couldn't even barely put a comb through it. It was horrible. It was like really like, I was almost like about to actually shave it. I felt like it was dreading up. So I went back to my hairdresser. She wore a mask and she wore an N95. I wore an N95 mask. I brought her an N95 mask. The person who did my shampoo had a face shield and a mask. Okay, so that's what I did to get my hair done. I'm setting up now to get my house cleaner to come back to my house. And she's gonna do an N95 mask. I will probably do an N95 mask while she's here. I changed all the filters in my home today so that way I could get ready for her to come because I hadn't changed the filters in a while. And so that's what I'm doing to prepare for her to come. Any other questions on that, Priscilla? That was Priscilla.
That was Priscilla?
Yeah, that was Priscilla.
I don't know, but I do have another question from Manju.
Okay.
And she's asking, and I hope I'm saying your name right. She's asking, I'm hearing that states will not close down again because businesses are suing states and they are losing the lawsuit.
Yeah.
That they sued. My apologies. I hit the send too soon. Okay, whoops. I'm hearing the states are shutting down for lawsuits and they're being sued by businesses and losing. Have you heard this?
So okay, so let me tell you something. I've heard something about what you're saying, but not exactly. So I've heard about companies that had business interruption insurance, and have had problems getting that insurance paid. Specifically, Legal Seafood has had business interruption insurance for like 20 years, and now they have branches all over the country where they're not being compensated for the insurance that they paid for. Then I'm also hearing about, so there's a sort of like, I don't know, I'm going to call it like a cat and mouse game. Okay. So I decide to, let's say I'm a governor of a state and I say, well, you can open up, but you can only open up at 50% capacity. So your insurance might only kick in if you're completely closed, but you can't make money at 50% capacity. So you're kind of in like this catch-22, right? And so I've heard about that. That's the most common thing that's actually happening. And that was the problem with the states that were opening up very fast, because once your state opened up, you had a responsibility to open up, and your insurance doesn't cover you in a business for decreased business. Your insurance covers you for no business. So when you think about it, like with the airlines and the restaurants, movie theaters, I think are going to completely go out of business. But when you think about like airlines and movie theaters and stuff like that, and restaurants, they can't make money on 50% business. That's a losing proposition. That's like you're opening up to lose, right? So when you look at other countries like South Korea, North Korea, not North Korea, but South Korea and Taiwan, they opened up their businesses, and then like 3 or 4 months, those businesses started dying out and going out of business. And I think that's what we're going to actually see here. And we're starting to see some of it. And it's unfortunate because some of these are really, really good businesses, but they need the PPP and emergency funds that we're getting. It's not even close to being enough.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope that answered it, but I don't know about that specific circumstances, but I'm telling you what I've actually seen and heard.
Mm-hmm. Okay, next question. If I want my son to visit his grandma, what should he do? He lives in a separate state. Should he quarantine before he visits?
I need to know the states.
Okay, let's see. This is Priscilla.
Where's he coming from? Where's he
get
coming from, and where's he going to?
1 second. Priscilla, if you could unmute yourself to clarify. Priscilla, if you could just unmute yourself to clarify, that'd be helpful. Let's give Priscilla a second.
Okay, and I see somebody else who's trying to fly. I really want to talk about a flight.
Well, while we try to get off mute, we'll definitely like.
Yeah.
Seeing that some of the airlines have now equipped their ventilation with HEPA filters.
Right.
What impact does this have? Can you describe it as it relates?
Yeah. So let me tell you something. So if I was going to fly, so the HEPA filter is actually, it's good. However, that's for the air that actually gets to the HEPA filter. So the question is, does the air get to me first, or does it get to the filter first? I want the air to get to the filter first, but it might get to me first. So air that's sort of like, they found on airplanes that people near the vents are actually, those rows are actually the rows that actually become COVID positive. So a couple of things. I would not fly with without an N100 mask and a hazmat suit. I think I've shown, who asked that question?
Me, but also Darlene.
Darlene, okay.
About all right. Flying.
All right. Okay, so is Darlene off mute?
Not yet. I'm still trying to get Priscilla.
Oh, okay. Okay. No. All right. Okay. So one thing is, and Darlene, you can put in the chat box, but I don't know if you saw the N100 mask and the hazmat suit that you should actually use if you're flying. If you did not see that, I'll get up and show it and go get it. Okay. Holly, did you see it?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Great. All right. Great. So I would order that. The hazmat suit is about $20. And the N100 mask, the link. So somebody asked, so the link, so hold on a second. The link is, we haven't put that on the website, but I need to put that on there too. I found it on eBay. Okay. And the N1 is an N100 half respirator mask. Priscilla asked for that, and I know she's new. Hold on just a second. Hold on. Do not fly without this. Okay. This is critical. This is critical. Okay. So this is actually the mask that you actually If you have to fly, like don't fly just because you need to fly. Fly because you like I'm required to fly. Okay. So now this particular mask, it's actually easier to breathe in because it has 3 areas that you can breathe. See, 1, 2, 3, right? And if you take this off, hold on a second, let me show you. And that's the filter. And the one that I have I have replacement filters if I use it that much. See, so I have a replacement filter that I can just screw on and replace that filter, right? Okay, so now these come in, I'm gonna go over this because I don't know if everybody, so when you're gonna, this is just a vent so that you can actually breathe a little bit easier, okay? So when you get it, you take that off, you take the white part off, right? Because you wanna fit test it and you wanna actually make sure, and let me show you the inside of it. So this is what it looks like on the inside, okay? All right, so when we in emergency medicine, critical care, we work in the hospital, all of our masks are fit tested, okay? So what that means for this mask is I put it on, all right? I put it on here, okay? Now, it is, and I apologize for the dog, it is an N100, okay? So an N100 means if I close these 2 vents, I suffocate and I can't breathe, okay? So I close it with my hand, and I get my really close. I can't even breathe in, okay? And that's how you fit test it and know this works for you, right? Because you don't want one too large, you don't want one too small, right? Then this mask you get on a plane with, you keep it on the whole time, right? And then you have a hazmat suit. Let me see if I have one with me. No, they're in my car. But it's basically a Tyvek suit with a hood and also with a with booties. And I would have some sort of glasses or goggles. And I would keep that on the whole time if I was going to fly, and gloves. If I had to fly. All right.
And then you'll have a link that you can provide.
Yeah, I'll have the link. I got this on eBay. So just, I got this on eBay. Wait a second. And this is what it's by a company called Spirion. And it's actually, if you say Spirion and you say, what is this? Half mask face piece by Spirion. You will see it. Yeah, you will see it on eBay. Okay, and I think it was $80, $90. The Tyvek suits, it depends on how many you buy. If you only buy one, they might be $30 or $40. But if you buy I bought 10, they might be $20 or something like that. And then I bought a box of gloves.
Okay, Priscilla, I see you have unmuted yourself. So can we go back to your question about your son visiting his grandma?
Yes.
Go right ahead.
Okay, thanks. Yeah. Thanks so much, Dr. Valdo. This is awesome information, very timely. I'm thinking about, well, how long is it going to be before we actually see our loved ones? And my mom's about 80. She does have pre-existing conditions, in particular diabetes. And my son in particular, who's 13, was really concerned that he would show up asymptomatic and give it to her. We don't have a vaccine. We don't know when we will. If there comes an opportunity where he could go see her, what's the safest way to ensure that he's not transmitting it to her?
Oh, okay. All right. Very good. Very, very good question. Okay. So I always tell people, when you're dealing with something medical, do what the medical people do. Okay. So one of the things that they've reinstituted and they've restarted is elective surgery, right? Because all elective surgery at surgery centers and stuff like that was shut down.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So what are the doctors doing before they, because I'm gonna tell you right now, emergency medicine physicians, I feel like they're putting us out there, but all the other doctors are like, no, I can't see the patient, right? So what are those doctors doing before they stress test people or take them for a bypass surgery or do a cardiac catheterization? So they're doing 2 COVID negative tests within 48 to 72 hours. If you have 2 COVID, because the test has a false negative rate of about 15%, which means that it actually tells you you're negative, but you're really positive. 15% of the time, that's actually a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So if you get 2 COVID negative tests within 48 to 72 hours, 2 or 3 days, that person is COVID negative. And they are then actually doing their elective surgery. And that is the criteria that we are using as physicians to protect ourselves. I would use that same criteria.
Wow, that's excellent.
So let's say you wanted to go spend on the month of August with his grandmother and get 2 COVID negative tests around the end of July. But then the thing is, wait a second, is grandma a plane ride?
Yes, she
or
is.
She a drive?
I know, she's a plane ride.
Oh
Yeah, that's
right?
the thing.
Yeah, then you got to do this, and you got to do the Tyvek suit, and you got to do all that. Right? Right?
Yeah.
So he can't actually, if she's a plane ride, then he's got to actually do all of that stuff.
Wow. And the COVID tests are they at CVS now?
So different jurisdictions are, so one of the things that we had as an exercise for this particular call was that last week we said that we were going to actually try to get COVID tested or antibody tested, everybody on the call. So I don't know if people actually, I don't know, who experienced what, but I'm going to talk about what I experienced. So I went to the DC website, and I was told that I should be able to get COVID tested at my fire stations between 4 to 8 p.m. Monday through Friday. So I went to one fire station, which sent me to another fire station, and it sent me to another fire station. So I went to a total of 3 fire stations, and none of them were COVID testing. None of them. Right? So then I said, okay, all right. So then I called, let me see what's happening over in Anacostia. Let me find out what's happening over in Southeast. So, and I called the Anacostia number. They said that if I was going to get a test in Northeast or Southeast DC, which is where the predominant COVID positive and mortality rates are, that I would have to actually fill an online application, wait 2 to 3 days, someone would call me, and then I could go in. If I wanted to go in Northwest DC, I could actually go walk in.
And you're a physician, and you're going to do this.
Well, no, I didn't tell them all that. I wanted to see what regular people, like sometimes I just stress test the system, like what are regular people dealing with?
Gotcha.
Right? But no, they're not COVID testing me. Let me tell you something. If I get sick, because I actually went through this, and the nurses are going through this too. When we get sick, they're like, I mean, literally, unless we're short of breath and have a fever, they're like, well, maybe it could be something else, because they don't want you to not work your shift.
Jesus.
Right? So there's a shortage of physicians and nurses in the area of emergency medicine and critical care. So they're trying not to. In fact, I had a nurse that was COVID positive, documented COVID positive. They told her to come back to work on her 8th day of work. Okay. So I am telling people, that's why I tell people, it's very dangerous. Do not go to the emergency department. Do not go to the hospital. Some friends of mine they're having a little cookout on Saturday. And I told them, I said, the only reason why I'm going is I haven't been working for 21 days. Like I took June and July off. I decided to take some time off. But I said, you guys shouldn't be inviting me in general. right? But I'm really responsible about it. So I'm like, listen, I haven't worked for 21 days, so I'm going to go ahead and go, right? But no, so the state of Washington, Governor Inslee, he was very, very good about COVID testing all of his frontline workers. And that is one of the things, frontline workers should be tested regularly regardless of symptoms. And they're not, that's not occurring.
Thank you, Priscilla. All right, let me go to our next question in the box here. And it comes from Leona. Given COVID-19 pandemic, please tell me under what circumstances it would be safe to visit the dentist.
So let me ask you this: what do you need to be done?
Okay, you're asking.
Yeah. So if you're trying to go to the dentist for a cleaning and a checkup, I wouldn't buy. Don't do it. Just leave it alone for this year. You're better off getting additional products that you can maybe use at home. If you're going, so we had a whole conversation about the dentist last week, and I shared with everyone that I actually really, really, really need to go to the dentist. I have a abscess that I need to get drained, and I need a root canal. And my appointment was right as everything was shutting down. So everything in DC was shutting down around the middle of March. And I had an appointment around like the 20th or 25th or 29th of March, right around that time. And so my appointment was canceled. My dentist has since reopened. Now for me, I'm new to this particular dental insurance. So the longer I wait, the more I get compensated because I get more of a increased reimbursement. But I mean, if it's something where, so the dentists I would contact the dentist and ask what procedures they're using. Most of them are temperature testing. Most of them are making sure that there's only one person in their waiting room. Most of them are using a face shield and a mask. Some of them are not actually doing any sort of fluoride treatment or water picking or anything that sprays stuff around. Most of them are not doing that. If it was something where like my tooth ache and I can't sleep at night, then I would go. If it's something like, well, I just kind of want to go because I get my regular dental checkup now, I probably wouldn't go. Yeah, Leona wants to unmute and talk. Leona, please do. So Holly, please unmute her and talk so she can talk. Because I do want to have a discussion because I don't know necessarily some of the criteria.
She can unmute herself.
Okay, so Leona, you can unmute yourself. Leona? Leona, you can unmute yourself. Are you having a problem? Okay, so we have an anonymous attendee.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's get that question in while she works on unmuting.
Yes.
Many people are stating that COVID-19 was shown to be a joke and not as bad as it has been reported because of the protest. What are your thoughts?
When you say because of the protest, you mean, I don't know what they mean because of the protest.
Well, I can say one thing that's definitely come up is that people, I think, were expecting, because we've now into day 13, 14, that there would be some sort of outbreak because people have been protesting that long, and we would see increases in corona.
So no,
now people are not taking it as seriously.
Right. If you do not get tested, so let's say I was protesting in DC. My mayor didn't tell me to get protested, but Andrew Cuomo said, if you've been in a protest, you should get tested. Okay. So let's say I took that advice. I just went today to 3 sites and could not get tested. Right. So you have to actually recognize there's a certain, and then people go, well, hey, I couldn't get tested here. I couldn't get tested there. And then people go, I'm feeling fine. Meanwhile, they're actually transmitting the virus all over the place for up to 14 days until they become symptomatic.
Mm-hmm.
So that is what's happening. So we're going to see something that goes like this with cases, and then it goes like this, literally. All right. And we're going to be in a system. So just so everybody on this call knows, Dr. V has said she's not working this summer because I don't think, somebody had actually talked earlier about whether or not the governments were going to shut down again. I think there is going to be a resistance, a political resistance to shutting down. And you actually could see the overwhelming of the healthcare system. And I've decided that I'm actually not going to be a part of that. I'm actually not, and that is what I'm anticipating. And I've decided that I'm not going to be a part of that. And I have actually shut down any shifts past the 4th of July.
So let's finish this question. We'll see if we have Leona, and then we'll go to Ronald Charles. So
Yeah.
I see you in the queue, Ronald. One moment. I think we got it answered on the anonymous person was specifically also wanting to understand about social distancing and the impact of social distancing in protests.
Yeah. So first of all, 6 feet and the mask is needed. And that doesn't mean that you're safe. It means you've significantly decreased your risk. However, if you then throw tear gas into the crowd and then you cause them to begin coughing and tearing, all bets are off. All bets are off, right? And so, I understand the protest. I actually, so just so everybody here knows, and Holly, you and I can attest to this. I sent a letter in to Holly to send to National Action Network, and I sent it into Stephanie to send into the DNC and the Biden campaign, and I sent it into a bunch of pastors with 9 recommendations, even around the Floyd funeral, because I was very concerned when I saw the first Floyd funeral in Minneapolis with people sitting near each other and not wearing masks. It may not be related to me, or it may be related to us. I don't know exactly, but I sort of feel like they actually did move into social distancing in the church and actually wearing a mask. So there is kind of like something where we were kind of like, I don't know, like acting like it wasn't there or something like that. But no, it's really there. But you're not going to see it. So when you're going to see it is actually going to be, so first of all, the COVID positives where they become symptomatic are going to be around July, the beginning of July. And the deaths are going to be in August.
All right, Leona, you are now unmuted, and I see you've unmuted yourself, so please follow up with us.
Leona, are you there?
Give her a second here.
Okay.
Let's see. Oh, she says she's unable to unmute.
Okay.
It says your mic is open now. You may speak, or you may try talking. You may have your volume down. And the other thing you might want to do is to click on the arrow next to your microphone and check your mic settings, either from your computer or your headset, whichever you're using. We'll leave you open, and we'll go to Ronald Charles while you check on those things. And Ronald Charles, can you tell us about your dental experience, is what he wants to share.
I would love to hear that.
Sure. So I actually did go to the dentist. It's a little over a week ago on Friday.
Okay.
And so when I came in, I was the only person there. They took my temperature immediately, and then took me into the room, not a waiting room. They had the chairs there, but they had the chairs, like one chair out, one chair in reverse, so that the chairs would allow me to be personally distanced.
Right.
so they took me back to the room and to the room, and I had to wash my mouth out with peroxide. The dental assistant had on, the dental hygienist had on a face shield, a mask, and not a full hazmat, but she had on an additional covering over her clothes.
Okay.
And she told me that she would not be using the scraper with the water that goes through it, and that she would not be polishing my teeth because of the particle spray. So she scraped my teeth. She used minimal water, just a little water in my mouth for me to rinse out, and then I rinsed out with Listerine. So it was very, very minimal exposure to her and to myself.
All right, there you go. There was a dental experience. I think it's important that we actually document the things that worked well and the things that did not work well. It's interesting. I asked my hairstylist about herself, but I didn't even think to ask about the shampoo girl. And I was really glad to know that the shampoo person actually took extra precautions. And this is a time period where we want people to take extra precautions, particularly if you're going home and you have somebody at home who's at risk. Any other questions, Holly?
Let me see. I'm still working with Leona. Let me see if we can get her. Let's try her one more time.
Okay.
We have about 8
And
minutes.
she can actually feel free to I know it might be long, but type it in the chat box, and we'll actually.
Because I'm showing her mic is open. I want to make sure she hasn't accidentally picked up a Bluetooth device. Sometimes when we're using our phones, that happens that way. So what is the advice as we think about folks who, because now these protest moments are happening everywhere.
Yeah.
Not just in big cities, but even in my little sleepy community of Hyattsville, Maryland. They've been almost 4 days now of gathering at the courthouse. What advice do we give? And especially because it's our young people, it's a lot of our young people.
Yeah.
What advice do we give them to prepare for the protest, to head down to exercise social justice?
So one of the things is that I would really, really recommend the N100 mask, particularly for somebody who's going to go down multiple days, right? So again, at $80, I would recommend this if you're going to go and be like, I'm committed to protesting, right? Now, it also works against tear gas. You're not really that impacted by tear gas, right? The other thing is that I would really make sure a lot of the Asian markets have KN95 masks. And I see some people at the protest with it's just like a regular dental or surgical mask. But the KN95 masks are actually really good, and they're about maybe $5. And you can use them 2 or 3 times. So if you're thinking to go to a protest 2 or 3 times, invest in a KN95 mask, and you can get them at most of the markets, like the little markets, like the little Korean markets, or the little Chinese markets. And I would get a KN95 mask. You don't want to invest $8 in that. Right. And that actually, and it comes, and you'll see them, and they come to a point. They look like this, and they come to a point. And I would actually use an N95 mask, because that makes a difference. The example that I gave in the presentation was both people actually using a mask that was 60% effective. So you can always up your ante by using a more effective mask. Right? So let's say I'm dealing with somebody who doesn't have on a mask, then I'm absolutely going to have my N95 mask on. Right? Okay.
California is starting to allow outdoor eating. Do you know if the CDC restaurant recommendations are effective at reducing the spread? Would you recommend doing this?
Yeah, so first of all, the CDC is completely being, it's probably the only time that I've actually seen where they're actually being politically manipulated and not governed by science. So I cannot speak for anything about the CDC recommendations. I'm actually recommending that whatever the CDC is saying, that you do more than that. And so there's two things around eating outdoors. One, the dirtiest thing in the restaurant is the menu. No menus. I looked online with my phone and I know what I actually want to order before I get there. That is the most important thing, right? Because the menu is the dirtiest thing, and it's plastic, and COVID-19 stays on plastic surfaces or non-porous surfaces for a very long time. I would actually recommend no menus, and if you want to order, then you order, and it's maybe you and a friend, somebody that maybe that's in your family, nobody else. And you're really outdoors. You're not outdoors in an area where there's a top and there's a side and you're not really outdoors, right? You really want to be outdoors where the wind is blowing and you're subject to that. But again, I tell people all the time, if you actually look at what are the risks that I want to take, is eating outdoors that important? Is that the thing that you want to do? If that's the thing you want to do, then do it. If getting your hair done is your thing you want to do, then do that. If, you know, for everybody it's something different. House cleaner, do that. But if you say, well, I got to eat outdoors, I got to get my hair done, I got to have my house cleaner, I got to have the HVAC guy in, I got to have the electrician in. Well, now I'm kind of like, well, wait a second now. You're layering multiple risks, which doesn't really make sense. So I'm recommending that people actually pick one or two things that they want to do, and then they actually create the best environment for those one or two things to be done.
Brian shares with us, and the salt and pepper shakers are also dirty.
Salt and pepper shakers are the ketchup, mustard, all of that stuff.
All the commonly used items.
Yes.
So in our Q&A, we have, do you have to be fitted for N95 mask?
You don't have to be fitted for anything. I mean, it's just all about the effectiveness, right? If you're not fitted for it, it doesn't work at 95% capacity. You don't have to be fitted for it, but it doesn't work as well, right? So a regular surgical mask, which is the straight across mask, and let me just go get that for just a second. So I want to make sure that everybody knows this, because this is the most important thing. So this is like the regular mask that you see people with, right? And it has a little metal here, so it bends right around the nose, right? So this mask that I put on like this, right? And I put it on like this, and I put it over my nose, and I crimp it. And then I have it up underneath my chin, right? Still has a gap here, still has gaps here, all of that. Now, assuming that I take it off appropriately over here, and I don't do this, which is, you shouldn't do that. This is 60% effective, okay? Now, an N95 mask, which is like this is my fit tested N95 mask. This N95 mask for me is, because it's fit tested, is 95% effective. Now, if I just grabbed any N95 mask and it wasn't fit tested, it's not going to be 95% effective. Maybe it might be, I don't know, 80, 75, who knows what, right? So I went over last week, and I can do it again on Thursday if everybody wants to get on Thursday. How do you actually figure out, is this the mask for me or not? right? You have to have a couple of N95 masks that you can test and compare, right? And then this mask is the N100 mask, which blocks 100% of the particles.
Mm-hmm. So it's 9 o'clock, but we have 3 questions, so maybe we can do a rapid fire round here.
I'm gonna do a rapid fire.
All right. So the first one is CDC is now saying COVID is not transmitted by surfaces. Is this true?
It's less. So what they're saying is this particular disease is all about viral load. So you have to get enough viruses to actually cause an infection. So let's assume I needed 1,000 particles. What they're saying is, we don't think you're really getting that many particles from surfaces. But I'm still spraying all of my groceries when they come in, if you want to know what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm. All right, next question, and then we'll go to our last question. The daycare is opening in July, but I'm going to keep my grands because I'm not ready for the daycare just yet.
Mm-hmm.
When should we send our babies back to the daycare, even if it's a home daycare?
Yeah. We're talking less than like 5 years old, less than 6 years old?
I would assume.
Yeah.
Daycare. We're talking
I wouldn't send them. I would try to partner. So look for someone in your circle of influence in your community where they're actually maybe doing the same things that you're doing. And maybe you can actually like partner up like their kids, my kids, and then we're going to just hire somebody. That lowers the risk. You want to lower the numbers, right? So if I have 2 kids, Holly has 2 kids, somebody else has 2 kids, those 6 kids and those 3 families are better than going to a random daycare with 20 kids. This whole disease is about the law of numbers, right? And I would actually say, well, wait a second, how much am I paying that daycare? How much are you paying that daycare? How much are you paying that daycare? Could we actually get our own daycare person to just take our 3 kids or 6 kids or whatever it is from these 3 families? So we know, and you all agree to do the same protocol, right? We're all working at home. None of us are going out. None of us are doing this. Nobody's an essential worker. I would do that and see if I could create that partnership in my community before I would go to a daycare.
Okay, that sounds good. And there was a hand up, but he's gone. I don't know what happened. Maybe he's
okay.
So let's take our last question. Where are the hot spots for virus transmission? Is it still the grocery store? And we'll end on that one.
You know, that's very interesting. I don't think we can say right now, given the protest, we had to wait and see. But I will say geographically, the new hotspot that actually is coming up is Arizona. Arizona is becoming a geographic hotspot and will probably have a problem, and you'll probably hear about it on the news within the next 2 weeks. I used to work in Arizona. They've got a lot of Indian reservations, American Indian reservations. So their ICUs are full in Phoenix, and their ICUs are near full in Tucson. So that sort of southwest, you know, that sort of, southwest, that sort of southwest area of Arizona, New Mexico, Nevada, particularly Nevada, which opened up the casinos. And I saw a disturbing video about the casinos in Las Vegas. There was nobody with a mask on. First of all, you can't drink and smoke with a mask, right? That's like inconsequential. And then those people from Nevada are going to get on planes. And this is why I'm telling people, this is why it's so important to think about what it is that you're going to do, right? You might have a flight from East Coast to West Coast, and you might not even be thinking about the fact that you have a connecting flight and people on your flight from Las Vegas. Those folks are gambling like nothing happened. And it's really, really, really disturbing. And I think we're going to have a very, very dark summer. And I'm going to be here on Tuesday and Thursday, but I will not be working in the emergency department. I have decided that I'm going to like punch out my clock until January because we have to do the things that we need to do to keep ourselves safe, and we're not doing it. And as a primary healthcare worker, I have the responsibility to sound the alarm. But when the alarm is ignored, I don't have the responsibility to go back into battle. And that's where I am at right now.
And there's a big thank you. This has been life-saving. So glad you are protecting yourselves. And so are we. Let's take let's see. Nope, no Henrys. Okay, I don't know. People keep disappearing. I think we're done for today.
Okay, all right. But Thursday, I want to know what happens. I want people to go try to get tested. We try to get COVID tested and antibody tested. I want to hear about other people's I want to hear about other people's experience on Thursday. Okay.
Homework assignment. We'll be back here Thursday, which will be June the 11th at 8 p.m. Eastern time for those of you who are in different time zones. And we need a report back so we know what's going on.
Exactly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Bye.